This is a 3-liter Toyota Hilux D4D, arguably one of the best bakkies to ever grace the South African market, but also one of the most dangerous vehicles you can buy in the country. With our African brothers being as hungry as they are and car theft being on the rise, is it still possible to own this bakkie and other high-risk vehicles in South Africa? Let's find out. The first step towards peaceful car ownership in our Rainbow Nation is knowing where the danger is. And yes, I know that joke was very low-hanging fruit. I just made a TikTok reference. I am extremely sorry, and let's move on. But yeah, the first thing to know when you're trying to have peaceful car ownership in South Africa is just knowing what cars to avoid. Knowing what cars are the biggest crime risk. So according to Fidelity, in no particular order, some cars to avoid are BMW 3 Series. No, but I'm sure they're talking about F30s, G20s, newer stuff. Someone who'd hijack an E90 is either clinically insane or just wants to not get to that destination really quickly. But yeah, let's move on. Next up is the Ford Ranger, Hyundai i20, Nissan NP200, Toyota Corolla Cross, Toyota Corolla, Toyota Etios, Toyota Fortuner, the GT6 and the D4D, Toyota Hilux, the GT6 and the D4D, Toyota Prado, and the Toyota Land Cruiser. Also the Toyota RAV4. I think we're seeing a theme here. Toyota vehicles not really the best in terms of security, so maybe something to try and avoid there because they are such a huge crime risk in this country. I think this just comes down to Toyota vehicles having the security capabilities of the South African National Defences. So yeah, maybe try and avoid Toyota vehicles in total. And last on the list is the VW Polo. So then in general, cars that can handle African roads like these ones are the ones that are most targeted, simply because they can cross rivers faster and they're more useful when they get resold in foreign countries like your Zimbabwe's, Mozambique's and stuff like that, because of the rough road conditions that can occur in those types of countries. If you've already bought or are planning to buy one of these vehicles that I've just listed, well, I don't blame you. They're really great cars, to be honest, and it'd be hard for someone to choose the alternative over those cars. Something like the VW Polo is so influential and has so much pull in the South African culture that it's kind of hard to choose maybe an i20 or a Picanto or a Swift over that car. They're just so attractive. So if you're a person who's in that kind of situation, then you'll be glad to know that there are some things you can do to avoid your baby or soon to be baby from being turned into negative matter. One of the things you can get is a ghost immobilizer. If you don't know what that is, it is basically an electronic unit installed inside of your car that can be controlled off of your phone, where when you get out of the car, you can arm it, and when you come back, it will either require you to unarm it from your phone or put in a special pin into the car using maybe the steering wheel buttons or the radio buttons or something like that, and then you can drive off with it. What happens when you don't put in that pin or when you don't unarm it is that it will travel maybe 100 meters and then come to a stop because you haven't put that pin in. So the ghost has the power to turn the car's engine completely off. This is what you see a lot of on Instagram. Criminals stealing Hiluxes going 100 meters, and then you can almost feel just the frustration in their faces as the car just slowly glides off, comes to a stop, and turns their little hijack attempt into just that, a pathetic attempt. You could also get like an old school immobilizer. This is just the car keys. Once again, just the same system arms the car and can prevent the car from starting in the first place, or it'll just ring a really loud alarm, which obviously does not bode well for those of us who chose to steal cars for a living. You also want to install tracking units in your car, and I say tracking units, not tracking unit, because you want to make sure that you have more than one tracker in your car if it is high risk. If it is a high risk vehicle, it will get hijacked, and when it does get hijacked, those people probably know what they're doing. So the first thing they're going to do is probably look for the tracker and take it out. If you have multiple tracking units, I'm not saying it's impossible for them to remove all of your tracking units, but they're going to spend a lot of time trying to find all of them, which is valuable time that you could use to track your car down. So having redundancy in how many trackers you have is a great way to delay criminals making away with your vehicle, just giving you more time to recover it. Another way for them to dispossess what you thought was yours is to copy your key. Basically how this works is maybe you're going to the shop or you're just walking somewhere. If they know that you own a specific car, one person will have a device that copies your signal off you. This will be a person who's just following you around trying to copy your signal, while another person is standing at your car ready to fool your car into thinking that the signal that was sent by that other person who was following you is actually the car's actual key, letting them in and letting them have your prized possession. A way to stop this, to use something called a Faraday cage, which you can either get a Faraday cage key case, or you can get an actual Faraday case for your household. Because if you put your key maybe in your bedroom or near your front door, then they can also do the same thing, which is get close to the key, maybe get close to your front door, get close to your bedroom window, and copy the signal, send it to the car, and the car opens itself up. So Faraday cage, definitely something to consider, especially if you have a car with keyless entry. You also want to be really careful when you're going in and out of your home. If your car is high risk and high value, like a Prado, Land Cruiser, Hilux, Fortuner, something like that, criminals will track you down for multiple days just watching how you move, trying to get a hold of what your schedule normally looks like, what you do on a day-to-day basis. Whether that's you going to work, going to fetch the kids, going to grocery shops, they want to know what time you do everything, so that they know when you're coming back home, because that's when you're most vulnerable. When you're sitting there waiting for your gate to open, or even worse, you've stopped the car and you're manually opening your gate, that's when they will strike. You'll just see a random car parking behind you and someone getting in your car, and now there's 15 guns pointed at your face, and the world seems like a much unfriendlier place. So just make sure that you're extra careful whenever you're leaving home or coming back. Whenever you're coming back, be on the lookout for any suspicious individuals walking around your premises, or any cars that might be following you, because those people have probably been tracking you for a couple of days and are waiting for the perfect opportunity to pounce on you. Be very vigilant of your home. Getting cameras could also act as a deterrent for those types of hijackers, but it's only a detergent. It's not going to stop them completely from taking your car. It's just for lower level criminals, it might deter them. For the upper level guys, probably not, but it's better to have something than to not have anything at all. Something else to be very careful of is when you're on the road, especially on big national roads, when you're getting pulled over. Say like me, you were doing a smidge over the speed limits, and then you see blue lights behind you. Those people could be criminals. That's the South Africa that we live in now. I speak this out of experience. My sister's boyfriend had a 2019, keyword here, had a 2019 Land Cruiser Prado. It's not funny, but like, yeah, it happened. He had a 2019 Land Cruiser Prado. He was traveling from Joburg back to Mpumalanga at night, which is just doubly no. Don't travel at night with a Toyota with a 2.8 GT6 engine in it, with MP plates on it in Gauteng, but that's another story for another day. Is traveling at night and he sees blue lights behind him. Obviously pulls over, being a cordial citizen, being a cordial member of society. He pulls over and then he's told to get out of the car and gets hijacked. Really be careful when interacting with police officers, even if they pull you over in a police car and they're wearing police uniform, because that's what happened to him. Those people, he couldn't see the car, but the person that came up to him was wearing police uniform. So make sure that whenever a police officer pulls you over, or a traffic officer or whatever, you ask for some form of identification. I don't know what you can deem that to be, whether it's some sort of ID, or I don't know how those systems work, but make sure that he identifies himself and you know that you're dealing with an actual police officer and not Kagiso from Soshanguve. Another thing that can get you in big, huge trouble is giving lifts on the road. Don't ever give people lifts, ever. Even if it is 12 a.m. on a beautiful Sunday morning, you don't know what that person who you're giving a lift to is planning for you. You could stop, give someone a lift, and while you stopped, other people just jump out of the bushes, and now all of a sudden you're surrounded by 9 different men pointing 9 different 38 caliber revolvers at your face. Just make sure that you never give people lifts, ever. That's a non-negotiable. That is something that I never do also. That's something that I never do, because you could find yourself with a gun to your head really quickly and really unexpectedly. And the last point on the road is just really in general, just be very vigilant. Just in general, whenever you're on the road, be very vigilant, be very watchful of your surroundings. A car that's maybe been following you for longer than maybe you are comfortable with, or anything else, any kind of oddities that you may notice on the road, especially when you're in a high risk vehicle. Be sure of your surroundings, and maybe also get an advanced driving course, because there are a lot of horror stories of people being followed and unable to get someone off of their trail and then eventually getting hijacked. Make sure that you know what you're doing behind the wheel, and make sure that you are watching your surroundings as you're driving. Now, closing the video off, even though I didn't talk about them, you obviously want to do all of the obvious stuff, making sure your car is locked, not leaving valuables inside, preferably having tinted windows, all of that stuff, because that's just common sense. Just do those things if you bought a high risk vehicle. That will decrease your risk, even though it will decrease it very slightly. It decreases a decrease, and you might just be safer than if you didn't do those things. If you do all of what I've talked about in this video, you might still get your car permanently borrowed by a very nice African man, but at least it will be a lot more challenging for them to make off with your car without being emotionally scarred by the experience of trying to steal it. Alright, that was it for this video. Until the next one, goodbye.